Hello everybody, this is Scott Langford. Today I want to talk about fall protection, and in particular we're going to talk about fall protection with self-retracting lanyards. Not self-retracting lifelines, which we've talked about in the past, but self-retracting lanyards. These are lanyards that are self-retracting and hooked to the D-ring on the back of your harness. There are several different types that we can use. I've got a few here with me today. I'll go ahead and switch cameras and show you what we're looking at. We've got a couple different kind. This one's by Guardian. Guardian is the fall protection company that produces the inspection forms that I've had on several videos. They may not have been released yet, but this right here is the Guardian. And then we have a Miller type self-retracting lanyard, and then a Sela. All three of these have different types of ways to connect to the D-ring, and we'll go through those. Primarily, the first thing I want to talk about is inspection of these lanyards and what to inspect and how to inspect them and some of the things to look for. Okay, I'm going to take and slide all these out of the way, these ones that are new, before we talk about those. I'm going to talk about inspection. All right. First thing we want to talk about is inspection. This one we got off a job site a few days ago, and corrosion on this rivet right here that makes the connection. Next, you want to check the gate strength. If I see if I can get that in focus for you. It says 5,000 pounds when it's locked. Inspect before each use. That's just good stuff to do anyway. Here it is. Yeah, 3,600, and that's the minimum on a locking gate. It's 3,600 right here. And once you've done that, you want to also check this area too. It says here, now this is the anchorage. Okay, this is where it anchors, goes to the anchorage. Remember, we got to have 5,000 pounds anchorage. If you look right here, it says 5,000 pounds on this. Goes to the anchorage. Okay, so I mean, this goes to the lane, this goes to the D-ring in the back, this goes to the anchorage. So we got to be able to 5,000 pounds. Okay. Then you want to inspect the body. Inspect the body of the unit. The labels are legible. Okay, it talks about the parameters, or the equipment itself. What's its capacities, how long the free fall distance is, and what's the maximum capacity. Talks about the arresting force, so on and so forth. Should be a serial number on here to make sure you can identify the serial number on it. If this label is not on there, or it's rubbed off, then you can't perform an inspection. Therefore, you can't use the unit. Okay, so let's take a look at the inspection. One of the first things you do is you check it to see if it latches. Okay, give it a good hard pull, and it should latch fairly quickly. And then you pull the whole thing out. Pull it out. See if it comes away freely, all the way to the end. If there's any catches or nicks, or it doesn't spool up smoothly, it needs to come out of service. Okay. And then the last thing you want to do is check the webbing. See right here, we can already see that there's a cut. There's a cut on the edge. It's cut through. So we automatically know that this unit is no longer good for fall protection. As we continue to pull it out to do an inspection, check both sides. Okay, can you see this? Frayed, torn. If this were to be exposed in a fall, it would fail and the individual would fall, possibly to his death. Here's another rough spot. So you pull these out and do a thorough inspection. So we know that this one will not pass inspection. This harness will not pass inspection. Lanyard, this is a lanyard. The lanyard will not pass inspection. So it has to be removed from service. And I'm not talking about just taken and thrown in the back of your truck and wait for the next guy to come along who needs a lanyard and taking this one. It needs to be identified as no longer serviceable. It needs to be destroyed. You could send some of them back and they can rebuild them. However, the expense involved, it's probably better just to go ahead and replace the unit. Now, connecting to the D-ring. Several ways to connect. There's several different configurations to connect to the D-ring. This is one that you just hook straight to the D-ring. Got a hook here. Hook it to the D-ring. Has a gate. It's a double locking lanyard. Squeeze here, squeeze there, hook it into the D-ring. Squeeze there, hook it into the D-ring. Make sure that it's fully engaged as part of your inspection when you put it on. All right, so that's one is out of service. Now this is a shock pack right here. This is an indicator that would show you that the unit has been in a fall situation. It would be ripped. These red lines would be ripped out, showing that it's been exposed. Okay, now let's talk about some of these other ones. All right, this is a Guardian. This is a Guardian unit. Go to the Guardian website. Guardian has some good inspection forms, and they can supply you with your fall protection needs. Now, this is a brand new unit. Inspection criteria is basically the same. Check all your connections. Let's see what this thing says. Make sure it's locked. Inspect before each use. Okay, gate 5,000 pounds. All right, so double locking, 5,000 pounds. You got your part number and your serial number and the date of manufacture. Now this was manufactured in the 11th month of 2010. It's not even been in the field. It's been overlooked. It could be deployed and still be within use. Just make sure you perform an inspection on it. Now, the way these hook into the D-ring, I think I got a harness right here. Yeah. Of course, this is another piece of equipment that should be inspected before it's used. This is relatively a new one, but this is called the D-ring on the harness. Now, the way this one connects to the D-ring is you remove these set screws right here. Remove these screws right here. Let's see, right there. See, it comes away. All right. Move that. Remove that. It's quite an ordeal. And then you would take this apart right here. You need another wrench to do that. Okay. Now this one requires a different, we have removed this base plate. And then you remove, using a wrench, remove this. Reinsert, reinsert it through the back side. Okay. There. Reapply. Doesn't have to be tight, just slightly tightened. And it has a message here. Do not use if this message is visible. What that talks about is this locking plate here. And that locking plate, of course, you have to turn it so that it fits on the nut. There. Okay, that's retaining. Then you reinstall these, and they've got little lock washers on there, and you install it and lock it down. Part of the inspection routine would be ensure that these two screws are in place and tight, and that there's no wiggle in this plate as you do your inspection. And then you can see, let's see if I can get that up there. You can see where that rests inside the D-ring, and it can follow the D-ring around as you use it. Okay, so that's one type. So the removal is in the reverse order of putting it on. And it'll define it as I'm taking this apart. You can look, this is an 11-foot web, okay, self-retractable. Now this one cannot be bent back on itself. That means locked back on itself like that. It's not designed, okay? So that's an important thing to keep in mind. All right. As we disassemble and reassemble. Okay. There we go. All right. We'll set this aside while we take a look at another type. Now, this device is by Miller. It's called a Miller Turbo. And the hooks on this one are used for rebar work. Okay, guys who install rebar hanging from rebar building, rebar that goes into walls and things like that. Once again, you start at this top. Now this one locks in a different way, and we'll talk about it in a moment. It's got the instructions here. You want to inspect it. Here's the label under here, gives the serial number and the capacities of it, because it's also here as well. Okay, and it talks about capacities and the length, stuff like that, and how to inspect it. Remember the inspection criteria. Here's another shock pack. If he had a fall, this thing would deploy. The yellow tape is where it's been inspected. But you would pull it out and inspect it. I think this is my personal one. Pull it out, inspect the webbing, make sure it comes all the way out and retracts smoothly. And see that latches. Okay. This one attaches a little differently. There's a knob here. You loosen this knob, okay, which allows this to flip up, and then you would disassemble it. There we go. Then this would come out thusly. It doesn't come all the way out. See if you can see that where it opened up in here. That slides, and then this would, then you would slip the D-ring through that hole, close the clamp, back over it in the back, and then, well, it's got to fit in there. It's slotted. Yeah. Okay. Then this would tighten down, okay? And then that final latch. And then this is connected. Okay. Check your connections here. Here, make sure there's no corrosion. Check the gate strength. This one fits into the D-ring as well. Okay, so you'd be 100% tie off with dual lanyards. Okay. Just go ahead and take this one off. The more you do it, the quicker you get. Lift that latch first, loosen, it'll slip out, remove it, and we'll set that to the side. Now next, some situations you may need you may have your double lanyards on, and you need a third one for some work that requires a little more flexibility. You could use a single leg standard lanyard and then have this one on as well. However, we're prohibited from putting more than one hook in the D-ring. So the solution with this one is this right here, okay? This right here. And this actually fits in behind the D-ring itself, into the webbing. Let me get this open here. All right. All right. Sometimes easier said than done, but it will go in there. Wiggle it by. Okay. Roll it through. All right. Okay. Make sure it's not knotted or folded underneath. Then you would take this ring, insert it, and it's locked into place. Now, what this allows is some flexibility. Of course, the inspection criteria, and this is a shock pack, inspection criteria is the same. Check these threads through here. Make sure that none of them are damaged. Okay, make sure it... Well, let's check this one. Okay. So this allows you to move, and if you have a fall, it locks quickly. Now this one, the gate strength here is, should be 5,000. This is 3,500, which is the minimum. Now this particular type with this flat edge is designed so that it could wrap back on itself. So if you had to wrap around something, you have the ability to do it. This one is designed to do so because of this flat edge here. Then you could possibly take one of these other ones that we just took off and still have the D-ring available. Or you could use a standard double-legged lanyard if you're operating a man lift or whatever. You need to exit the man lift and hook off onto something that you could only use this to wrap around. So this is another way to handle it. There's more types in this. Remember, the main types is you're going to have a configuration that hooks outside of the D-ring, such as this. we show two examples of the type that could hook in the D-ring itself. Okay, only one connection in the D-ring, that shows that. And then you have the other type. You could use these two in conjunction with one another. Remember, you're only allowed to have one hook in the D-ring. Okay, so these are the various configurations that you need to be concerned about. Remember the important part, you can only have one hook, one connection to this D-ring. Okay, so there's a lot of possibilities out there. Okay, so we covered a lot of possibilities, but the main thing is ensuring that you've done your inspection on your fall protection equipment. We covered one piece of equipment that needs to be taken out of service. Make sure you look for those things out there in the field. We talked about some various types of connections. There are additional types of connections that can be made. Make sure that you're connecting properly. Okay, no more than one connection on the D-ring. That's why we had that configuration where you could go under the D-ring into the webbing with that one, so you still had your D-ring available for use for another fall protection unit, lanyard or self-retracting lanyard, or a self-retracting lifeline, which I'll get a couple of those and we'll have another video on those. It's not complicated. There's a lot to it. If you have a question, you have any concerns, feel free to contact me, and make sure that you take a look at some of these manufacturers of this fall protection equipment, these self-retracting lanyards, and see if they have their forms to give you guidance on inspection. Make sure you understand the capacities of these self-retracting lanyards. Make sure you use them properly and follow the manufacturer's instructions on how to properly use them. Appreciate you tuning in. I hope these videos are getting better. The main thing is I'm trying to reach as many people as possible. I don't know who I'm missing. If you have a question, please feel free to contact me. Y'all have a good day, and I'll see you in the field.